were spiritualists. They were mystics to a certain extent. They believed that God resided in the hearts of women and men, and that God spoke to us. Personally, I think if you preach about love enough, you're bound to get a little bit mystical. But to our modern sensibilities, mysticism, that feeling of unity with the divine, or that the divine is somehow talking to us, it can seem a little suspect, right? Like, oh, it's just all in your head. And the intellectualism of Unitarian Universalism has not always been incredibly kind to mystics, particularly in the last 50 years. And part of that is the reliance and the beauty that science has brought to us. But did you know that according to Pew Research, 49%, almost half, of all people said that they have had a mystical experience? In fact, it's increased. When they first did that in 1962, they took the poll, it was only 22%. And moreover, that 49% of those who have said that they have had a mystical experience, 30% of them, almost 1/3, were unaffiliated with any religion. Today, our reading is a report of a mystical experience by a Unitarian Universalist laywoman. She told this story in 2014 from one of our churches in Palo Alto, California. Her name is Brooke Bashara. And here's her story. A mystic is one who seeks direct experience of ultimate reality. The mystic senses that the divine is always present, but also that in our normal lives, we are only dimly aware of it. The mystic wants to become closer, to connect, to know the truth intimately. About 10 years ago, I had a mystical experience. It started as I was painting a picture to express a painful feeling from the past. With black paint, I painted the top half of a face along the bottom edge of the paper. It almost looked like the face was peeking just above a windowsill at me. The face had a sad expression, with a hat pulled down close to its eyes. In the act of painting the image, I was allowing an old feeling of shame that I had held for a long time to be expressed. I then asked the Spirit for help with this feeling. And suddenly, I received a surge of energy through my arms and into my chest and my head, and it tingled like electricity. And it was so strong that I got up from the desk and lay down on my bed. I stayed there for about a half an hour, feeling this tingling current of energy radiating through my body. I was fully awake and consciously thanking God for this gift and for the love being shown to me. I was deeply changed by the experience. The next day, when I had to get up and go through the regular motions of my life and work as a teacher, my eyes were open a little wider. I was awed by what had happened to me. I wanted to tell my colleagues and students, but I knew it was not for the telling, not yet. Mostly, I wanted to reassure people around me that there is indeed an abiding love that reaches far beyond our comprehension. As years have passed, and I've told this story a few times, someone once suggested that the feeling was a release, the energy of that old emotion leaving my body. Someone else suggested that it was the Holy Spirit coming in onto me to heal what was hurting. I do not worry about finding the right explanation, nor do I expect to ever have that experience again. But it has become a touchstone of my life. Though my mind cannot explain it, that experience opened a pathway in my heart that can never be closed. So for our meditation this morning, I invite you into a spirit of silence. Try to take some deep breaths, relax your body and your eyes. I invite you to consider, if you like, have you ever had an experience that you could not explain? And how do you feel about those experiences? here have had an unexplained experience, whether it's that sense of unity with one or maybe a synchronicity that you couldn't explain? Almost too good to be true. Anybody else? Excellent. Yeah, there we go, about half. There you go. So I have. In fact, I've had several of them throughout my life, things that I can't explain, and like Brooke, I don't really want to. But I'm going to tell you one story, because it reminds me of the story of John Murray and Thomas Potter. In my mid-20s, I was studying archaeology back east in Pennsylvania. I was in grad school. And I remember I had my life planned out for the next 10 years. I knew what I'd do with my summers, the classes I would take, that I would finish my dissertation, what year, everything. My second year, I met this guy named Brendan. And Brendan was this really gregarious guy. He actually came from the advertising world, and so he was kind of the life of the party kind of guy. And he was always telling us stories about being a fishing guide at a place in Alaska called Yes Bay Lodge. Now, I thought they were fun stories, didn't think much about them. And one day, a friend and I were hanging out at his place, and he hands me a brochure of Yes Bay Lodge. Looks similar to this. I know I've told you a little bit about Yes Bay Lodge in the past, but so I saw this picture in a brochure, and I hear this, I don't know if it was a voice, it was just this knowing. As he hands this to me, and he says, "This is the place I've been talking about." And he's sort of offhand, "Oh, this is that Yes Bay Lodge I've been talking about." And I knew in a way that's not a feeling, it's not words. I knew that somehow, some way, I would go there someday. And I remember thinking, why would I go there? I mean, I know what I'm doing for the next 10 years. I know what I'm doing every summer, every year. I was sort of amused and puzzled by this feeling. Didn't really understand it. Well, the next year I finished my master's thesis and I was studying for my doctoral exams. I was right on track, doing exactly what I was supposed to do. I had applied for and I won a Fulbright scholarship to study abroad in Greece. But a little kink in my plans. It didn't cover all of my expenses. So I decided, okay, I need to alter my plans. I need to get a job for the summer to make some money before I head off to Greece. That's when my friend Brendan told me to apply to Yes Bay Lodge, where he knew I could make some money. People were always tipping very heavily there. There was a lot of Hollywood people who would go up there and everything. You can guess the outcome. I got the job of office assistant and part-time bartender, which was way fun. And it was very competitive, actually, so it was interesting that I actually got that. But that summer was one of the most profound summers of my life. It was one of those touchstones that sent me on my call to ministry. At the end of the summer, I had given up the Fulbright and had left graduate school. I had some of those amazing experiences that I can only be described as mystical there, and I'll tell them about it in another sermon. But how did I know that I was going to go there? This has racked my brain for years. I mean, can we really tell the future? I mean, that seems sort of crazy, and I don't actually believe that we can tell the future. But maybe we're given suggestions. Strong suggestions, and we can choose to follow them or not. And I don't know if this knowing comes from God, our subconscious, a guardian spirit, whatever. I just know it happens. And I'm okay with that because this feeling that I've had throughout my life, it has never steered me wrong. Never, not once. I'm not someone who believes that science currently explains everything. I think it explains a lot, but maybe not everything. We still have a lot to learn. So for example, we know that Newtonian physics, right, which is what explains most of our world, it breaks down when we get to the very small or the very large. And that there are things that happen that scientists don't know why, they just know that they do, like dark matter, right? We've never been able to prove, really, what dark matter is. We just sort of know that there's some effect on celestial bodies out there. So we call it dark matter. The story of John Murray and Thomas Potter, one of our Unitarian Universalist canonical stories, can be a little disconcerting for such highly intelligent people as Unitarian Universalists who pride ourselves of our embrace of the world of silence. So whatever you want to believe about that story, I invite you to just enjoy the story and take the lessons from it. You know, when I read the original story, as told by John Murray himself, he wrote it down in preparation for this sermon, what surprised me about the original story was just how incredibly resistant Murray was to Potter's vision. I mean, he was completely freaked out. I mean, wouldn't you, if someone came up to you and said, "You're the one I've been waiting for"? And then they want you to do the one thing that you swore you would never do again. John Murray is called the father of American Universalism, but it was Potter, an illiterate farmer, who gave Murray his vision, who got him back on track. Sometimes we need someone else's light to kindle the fire within us. It's a powerful thing to have someone believe in you, to think you are the one who is going to change their life. Let me tell you another story. When I was in seminary, a mentor once told me, "Sean, out there is a congregation that is waiting for you. They're expecting you to do what you need to do now so that you can serve them." When she said that, that really hit home for me. Out there is a congregation that's waiting for me. So I set out to find you. When I was looking for a church to serve, it's called candidating, by the way, I was waiting for the feeling. Because I'd always had feelings about places. That feeling that would tell me that I was in the right place, and I would get it. I interviewed with a lot of places. I'm single, I don't have kids, you know, like I threw a wide net around the country. Now I have to say that I really liked the search committee from this church. Tom, Mary, Marcia, Randy, and Laurel. All of them were on the search committee. And I suspected that OCUC would be the one, but I wasn't until I came here and I preached that I knew. And I remember the exact moment that it happened. I remember that the committee, there was just a few of them. I remember Tom was there. I think maybe Marcia was there. The committee had given me a tour. And first we went to the old church on Victoria. And they sadly told me about how they were leaving this place, this beloved place of theirs. But I have to admit, I felt this sort of little bit of disappointment because I didn't have the feeling. It was like, oh, okay. And then we came here. You hadn't actually moved here yet to this building, to this campus here, but you'd bought it. And as soon as we walked toward the building, we're coming in that entrance there, Tom says to me, "So this is the main entrance." And that's when it hit me, the feeling. And my heart started pounding, and I knew this was where I was meant to be. This was the congregation I'd been waiting for. And let me tell you, so there's the entrance. It's not that great looking. I mean, this is what it looked like when we came here. I think it was even muddy, right? It was pretty scruffy looking. We couldn't even go into any of the buildings. Tom was laying out the congregation's vision for a new sanctuary, the courtyard. He was giving me the sell, right? Little did he know, he had me at, this is the main entrance. And of course, you know, I played it really cool. This is nice, yeah? Great.
I don't recall that.
Did you know that you were my vision? How do you feel about that? Oh. It's kind of a strange thing to think that you might be someone else's vision of what they want or need in the world. And honestly, I hear it too on occasion. Sometimes people come up to me after a sermon and they say, "That was exactly what I needed to hear today." And trust me, I did not have them in mind when I was writing the sermon. And many times, this is my favorite thing, they hear something in my sermon I didn't even say. Seriously, one woman came up to me and she said, "Your sermon helped me forgive my former abusive husband." I wasn't preaching about forgiveness or abuse or anything. I was like, okay, great. It's so cool, though. Sometimes I think we hear what we need to hear, whether it comes in a sermon, a friend's hug, a passing breeze. And if that isn't mystical, then I don't know what is. I think that it's when we open our hearts, that's when the messages come. I don't want to explain mystical experiences, whether they are all a sense, whether that's that sense of unity with all, or a synchronicity, or a feeling about the future. I just love that they exist. They bring wonder to the world, and we need more of that. We really need that now. Because right now there's a lot of despair, right? The events of this last week alone can make one lose heart. People are fearing for our planet, for our nation, our families, our bodies. And sometimes it just seems too much. And it's tempting to want to stay in a cave or a grotto or a cabin and never come out. But we are Unitarian Universalists. We've been working toward a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all for a long time. We've been going out into those highways and byways, giving the world a new vision. We give hope and courage, not hell. We preach the power of everlasting love. We don't just pray about a better world or wish for it, we work hard at it. Many people in this room have worked their whole lives around raising children and working full time and dealing with illness, and still, bit by bit, we've been building that world community of peace, liberty, and justice for all. Remember that we're not alone in this. There are those who would have every reason to give up, particularly marginalized people, right, who experience more oppression every day than most of us experience in a lifetime, and yet they keep the faith. All around us are people who have never lost faith, people who worked for marriage equality, people who worked to end racist laws, people who still work to end oppressive systems, people of faith, whether in God, in community, or justice. People like Potter, people like Ford, people like King, who know that a dream, a vision, has to be built stone by stone, despite and in the face of opposition, in the face of ridicule, disbelief, despite the hate. When you find yourself giving into the despair for our world, our nation, our families, our bodies, remember all those who haven't given up, who believe in you, not because they know you, but because they have a vision we share, a better world where love reigns. We, all of us, are the ones we've been waiting for. And we don't stop when things get tough. Visions and dreams do come true, but not overnight and not magically. A mystical experience may light the way, but we have to walk that way. We have to do the hard work. Potter passed away a year after he heard Murray preach in his chapel. He never saw the denomination formed. Murray stayed for a while and then moved on to other churches, and he still got persecuted. But he also remarried, and he founded the denomination of Universalism. I didn't find OCUUC by accident. I worked incredibly hard for 9 years to get here, having faith that I would find you someday. Marriage equality didn't happen overnight. There were setbacks and challenges, but state by state, the vision never wavered, and now we have it. Whether or not you believe in this mystical or not believe in this, a shared vision cannot die. Not if we work despite all the odds. And if you feel sometimes that your light is going out, when you want to hide away in a new world, remember the Potters of the world who never lost faith, and then open your heart to new possibilities. May it be so, blessed be, and amen.